All right. We are starting. Starting right now. Here we are. Welcome to Saturday Beard Live with the 3-year beard, Justin. I think last stream I didn't even use my lapel mic. I think I used the mic that's connected to the webcam, but I don't know. I use a little bit of OBS, the software for the streaming. So I'm still getting used to it. There's a lot I need to learn. I'm not a streamer by nature. Just a content creator who's grown a beard for 3 years. So stay tuned. It's the 7th month right now. What do you think? How's it look? Look good? I just, well, obviously I'm not like that old. For some reason, my wife and I, we had like a discussion just 2 weeks prior about how it's really weird that I have white hair on my beard, but like nowhere else, barely. I mean, there's a little bit of whiteness on like right here, but anywhere else, like there's not much white. Like you look at my hairs, it's pretty much all dark, from the top of my head. So it's just kind of an interesting thing that my hairs that are white are just concentrated in my beard and nowhere else. And my wife would know. My wife would know. So hopefully you guys are having a good weekend. I'm having a great weekend too. I just went to the the strip in Las Vegas, and I ended up going to the Bellagio to see that garden. There's this huge indoor garden park. It's not like a park, but it's like kind of like a park because you get to walk around, see a bunch of animals, and they're not real animals, but like they're just like kind of decorations, huge decoration of animals and plants, and it looks like a tropical time right now. And apparently they switch out the theme every single season. So fall looks a little different, winter looks a little different, spring looks a little a little different. So now it's the summertime, so it has to look and appear a little tropical. So you see tigers, you see elephants, you see what would be kind of considered a hot climate, which is kind of fits the whole theme of summertime. So me and my wife and my daughter had some fun times. We dressed up, we took some pictures, just a nice little outing. And then we got back, made some pizza. Now I'm back here on this seat talking about beards. Speaking of beards, hopefully you guys are growing your beards, and I encourage you to grow that. Some people have different types of facial hair. Like some people have patches, some people have thinner, some people have really thick, some people have really long. It really depends on the type of person you are to try and grow a beard. So whatever you want to try to grow for beard and facial hair, just do it. Just try it out at least once. At least you'll know what you'll look like if you just try it. If you just commit to yourself of growing your beard, letting your hair grow out, and try to style it, try to just discover who you are, what your genetics bring you, because basically that's what beards are. Beards are just brought to us by genetics. Like one of those 80s commercials. This was brought to you by beards, genetics. So you're just having a fun time learning about science and biology and stuff when you can be learning about the products that I use. My beard products that I love using is Weatherbeard. Weatherbeard is a great product that I love using. They're very dependable, they're very reliable, good source, mom and pop shop. They have very 100% natural oils that they use in their products. 100% ingredients that are completely all natural. So let me just read off a few. Like for instance, in the beard oil, there's abyssinin oil, jocobo, jojoba oil, hemp seed oil, sunflower oil, and a bunch of other seed oils, shea nut oil, castor oil, essential oils. So This is all 100% natural, and it's made for your skin. It's made for your follicles to help stimulate, to grow, and make your beard thrive as much as you can. And yeah, I have a different few scents that I got from Weatherbeard, and I'm loving it. This is the beard butter. Of course, it's got like a nice little, woodsy, sweet, piney smell in the amber trail. And one of the favorites that I like is Hinoki Heights. That's a nice Japanese wood. So you get the nice woodsy, sweet, really sweet, piney with a hint of pine. It just smells really good. I'm also enjoying their beard kit. It's a sample pack that you can kind of get for relatively affordably cheap compared to other beard oil samples. You guys will definitely have a good amount of time trying this out, and not just once, because there are some beard companies that just give you one sample at one-time use. These types of small bottles will give you at least like 4 different sample times to try it out. Try out the different scent, at least 4 times to determine if you really like it or not. And of course, all these scents are great. I love them. So you guys, if you're growing a beard, if you really want to grow it naturally, if you want to grow it, with really a good smell, because my wife loves these smells. In fact, she really doesn't really care for beards at all, because she just kind of like, she likes my face. And when I have a beard, it hides my face a little bit. But she likes the smell of it, and that's how she can kind of like appreciate my beard, because these smells and these scents are very appealing to ladies. And my wife, she loves the Chanel, she loves the the bougie stuff, but she also loves the natural Nag Champa. She likes the regular essential natural oils. So she likes her spectrum of appreciating different smells is very wide. So she really likes these smells. So check out Weatherbeard if you're growing a beard, and if you want to grow it nicely, there's also a stimulating formula, a beard wash that stimulates the follicles, that helps wake up those dormant hairs, and to make it grow a little bit better, a little bit faster, more efficient with ease. So check out Weatherbeard, guys. I'm also into Live Bearded. Live Bearded is like very is also another good brand, a beard brand. This is their beard butter with sandalwood and vanilla. Nice clean smell, and pretty much all you do. Ooh, I was drinking something just recently, and it kind of stayed in my mustache. So basically, it's a nice clean smell. Sandalwood is a good profile that kind of like gives a nice good cologne smell, and then the vanilla is just a nice little sweet hint, to kind of give it a little bit of a oh nice, yeah. And I also have their carbon fiber beard comb, which is anti-static. So when I'm combing my beard, I'm not actually staticking my hair follicles to a point where it's going to be really fluffy. It's just going to keep it nice and nice and form-fitted. And yeah, and then that's the one thing I didn't realize is carbon fiber types of materials in your beard combs is very essential if you don't want to fluff up and create static within your beard. So really liking it. Originally I thought that this was going to be a little bit smaller, and then it ended up becoming like super size. So I mean, it still works because I'm going to be growing this beard for 3 years, and I plan on making it even longer and longer. So this is going to be a very useful tool to keep my beard non-staticky. So check out Live Bearded. They have a great products too as well, like their beard oils I've tried. They have a good assortment of scents, including clean smells, tobacco smells, on the spectrum of like, very metro man to very like, rugged man type of, profiles. So those are all great. And I'm hoping to collaborate with a few other people, a few other beard brands, So if anyone's watching this, if any other beard companies are, listening and they would like to reach out, please feel free. I'm more than welcome to get some free products to make some videos for you guys, so I can then just explore more beard products and see what's good and what's not. And mostly what I've seen so far is like, people dedicate, a lot of beard guys dedicate themselves to coming out with really good products, really good quality, and that's why I really like Weatherbeard and Live Bearded. Weatherbeard is high quality for their the amount of ingredients that they make. I don't know if you could hear that, but there's a plane going by. And Live Bearded is a good economical, friendly type of option, and with a good amount of products. It's very clean. There's not any like crappy stuff in it. And if you Google it, you'll know that like Live Bearded is definitely at number one, relatively, for their clean type of ingredients, and Weatherbeard is the more higher quality type of ingredients that you can get for your beard. So it's best of both worlds, and I'm glad I'm kind of choosing both of them. Of course, there's other beard companies that will also achieve the same result as to higher quality, pretty good affordability, and convenience. So, but yeah, anyone who's checking this out and would like to hit me up, go ahead. We'll try to I'll try to work with you. And I'm always like open to trying out new products. So with that being said, let's go and transition into the bearded legend of the week. Today's bearded legend is John Muir. With John Muir being known as the John of the Mountains from 1838 to 1914, very old, type of pioneer age. This Scottish American naturalist and author and environmental philosopher whose passion and advocacy helped establish the modern conservation movement. He is widely revered as the father of the national parks due to his instrumental role in preserving America's most iconic wilderness areas, most notably Yosemite Valley. So he was one of the grandfathers of preserving that area of the Yosemite Park. So his major accomplishments were national park advocacy. His activism directly led to the congressional creation of Yosemite National Park and Sequoia National Park in 1890. And I remember the Sequoia National Park because I lived in the Bay Area, so we would always sing about the song, Sequoia, Sequoia Gigantea, Mighty, mighty redwood tree. I remember growing up and singing that song in elementary school because the sequoia tree is a very big redwood tree. And if you've ever been into the Bay Area, Half Moon Bay, including some parts of the Redwood City, or no, not Redwood City, in Santa Cruz, you'll notice really, really large, long, high, sky-high trees that are just like almost like so big to the imagination when you're like standing right near it. So he was the advocate of preserving those types of places, including the Sequoia National Park. He also founded the Sierra Club in 1892. Muir and his supporters established the Sierra Club, serving as its first president until his death in 1914. And he also had presidential influence. Of course, because this guy had a nice beard who was advocating for preservation of national parks. And, you see him now, going around. I'm going to transition to the next one because he ends up having a really interesting story of how he was also a traveler. But yeah, his presidential influence during the 1903 three-day camping trip in Yosemite, Muir convinced President Theodore Roosevelt to expand federal forest protection and unify Yosemite under federal control. So, I know what you're thinking. Federal control? What? Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure back in the day, like people, including, advocates of trying to preserve things, you had to go into the Federal Reserve or the federal, control you pretty much had to give, that type of control to the government because, back in the day, like there was a lot of chaos. I mean, 1892. I mean, that's like really early in the colonization of America, right? Like, that's still like, trying to transition out of the, the 49er days. But needless to say, this was still like, in the transitional days of maybe even like, you know, bug like, wooden cart and stuff, like the, the horse and cart. That's what I was trying to say. I don't think there was even a train track, When were the trains first used? Okay, well, it was 1804 and the public steam railway in 1825. So it was relatively still new-ish. And I'm pretty sure there wasn't a lot of people utilizing that. It was just mostly for cargo and like, provisions and for, different towns and other things that, the mere folk couldn't always, have access to. But I could be wrong about that. Anyways, let's move forward and go on to the next point for his accomplishments. Prolific nature writer. He published hundreds of essays and highly influenced books, including The Mountains of California and Our National Parks, which popularized the spiritual value of nature. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Not only is he like traveling, advocating for preservation of national parks, but he's also writing like a poet. So this guy, definitely has a lot going on for him. He, very much accomplished with a nice, presentable beard, a very like traveling beard, I would say. Almost like a coal miner type of beard, like a 49er beard. Anyways, his key life events: Scottish upbringing. Since he was a Scottish American born in Dunbar, Scotland, he developed an early affinity for nature before his family immigrated to a farm in Wisconsin in 1849. The blinding accident, which occurred in 1867, a factory accident temporarily blinded him. Upon regaining his sight, he swore to abandon industrial work and devote his life to studying the natural world. So, yeah, that makes sense. Like right after, some type of industrial accident where he gets temporarily blinded and traumatized by an unnatural, world, which has, been manufactured by men, it would make sense that he would just kind of go towards more for nature, because nature probably didn't give him that many accidents. So, I mean, that would kind of make sense to me if that would actually make sense. But yeah, he also walked 1,000 miles at one point. Immediately after his recovery, he walked 1,000 miles from Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico, documenting the journey in journals later published as a 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf. So it was almost like a kind of a determination right after he realized his life was very fragile, because temporarily being blind, is super scary. You can't see anymore. So once you regain that ability to see, that almost gives the light bulb in your head saying, wow, I have taken life so for granted. I am not going to take it for granted anymore. I'm going to go walk 1,000 miles across Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico. That's true determination, and only brought to you by this man who had who had a very good traveling beard, a very good beard. Yosemite settlement. Moving to California in 1868, he fell in love with the Sierra Nevada mountains, spending years tracking its glacial history and building the foundations of his preservation philosophy. Whew. One of these days, I'm thinking that I'm going to just try to read this before I actually start reading it and getting prepared more, because if I read this a few times, I wouldn't be stumbling over myself as I usually do. But hey, if you guys are feeling entertained, that's fine. I hope you guys are entertained with this new rendition of what it was like when he was traveling across the Gulf, the Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico. Of course, it's not. I don't even know if this is a real picture, but it looked like it might just be in black and white, but then it was colorized, or this is like just another rendition of what it would have looked like if we could see in color as John Muir, travels across the the old good Indiana to the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, next one. Hetch Hetchy battle. His final years were spent fighting a devastating campaign to stop the demanding of Yosemite's Hetch Hetchy Valley. Congress ultimately approved the reservoir in 1913, a defeat that broke Muir's heart shortly before his death from pneumonia in 1914. So, yeah, he was trying to advocate the preservation of that Hetch Hetchy Valley, but to make more room for city infrastructures and for the common folk and for people that were developing in that area, or even around California. California uses the Hetch Hetchy River to get a lot of their water source. So that's usually why the government tries to step in and make new foundations to supply for their people. And if it wasn't for people like John Muir to advocate some preservation in these wonderful, beautiful valleys and these national parks, then there probably wouldn't be beautiful national parks to this day. So, he had a very big influence on how much it's important to preserve these beautiful biocentric preservation. That's what he said. His core principle and legacy: the belief that nature and wildlife have an inherent right to exist for their own sake, separate from their economic utility to humans. This put him at odds with contemporary utilitarian conservationists who favored managed resource use. His philosophical legacy endures today through the global system of national parks and protected wilderness reserves. So yeah, it was a very big thing back in the day to try to give awareness of, hey, this could be another habitat. This biocentric preservation could be helping this ecosystem that we probably don't even see, and we probably didn't even realize back in the day. We were just kind of like, we gotta make more things. We got to do all this. And he was so important and revered that they ended up sketching him in a huge, sequoia tree, ironically, near the Sequoia Valley. Yeah, I think this is probably near the National State Park, but anywho, that's pretty cool to see. And of course, there is also a wooden etch of John Muir and his one of his well-known quotes back in April 8, 1985. This was inducted to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, as he quotes, "Climb the mountains and get there good tidings. Nature's peace will flow into you as sunshine flows into trees. The wind will blow their own freshness into you, and the storms their energy, while cares will drop off like autumn leaves." So basically, he's just trying to say that being outside and being in this wilderness, climbing the mountains and getting out of the industrialism part of the world is so important, because it gives you almost life. It brings life into you. The flowing of the trees, the sunshine, the winds, the fresh smell of the leaves, and there's just plenty of great wildlife out there. Of course, aside from those black bears, you got to look out for those black bears. You don't want to be like anywhere near a hungry black bear, because they'll just run at you. Not even think about twice to crush your skull and everything. But aside from the scary animals that can lurk within these wilderness, it was just a great idea of preserving these national parks, so that way we as humans can be synonymous and live amongst the wilderness and nature. There's a connection between us and nature, and that's something that he was very much an advocate of preserving. So, that's great to see. Someone like that. Dedicated his life to, you know, basically. And here's a nice little side profile of John Muir. So yeah, thank you, John Muir, for your contributions to your bearded legendary status of preserving these national parks and keeping aware of of humanity that nature is important for us. It's almost like there's stories about people who really had almost like a overload of industrialism, where they ended up becoming very depressed because they were too boxed into their homes, and there were no windows. It was just walls. It was so artificial that naturally our bodies are not acclimated to that environment as much as nature is. We're more happier when we're around trees. We're more happier when we're around grass. We're more happier when we're around, you know, nature itself. And we almost, it taps into sort of an innate sense that we've all experienced ever since humans existed. That's been nature. Nature has been with us the entire time. So that's why it's super important to continue to appreciate people like John Muir, who advocated of preserving that type of nature and these national parks, so that way we can de-stress ourselves. We can become a part of nature again and not separate us away from nature, which I argue that nature is almost as close as to God, because God made nature. So if we separate ourselves from nature too much, the food that we eat, and the animals and the pets that we connect ourselves with, and they're like our little furry companions. That all in the nature within it, this huge spectrum of nature is so important to us humans that I think that we always need to be reminded about that. And people like John Muir is a great example of that. So again, thank you, John Muir, for your contribution. Your bearded legendary, history will live on as we continue to keep preservation of national parks a thing. You will always be remembered, and not only for your beard, but for your contributions to nature and humanity. So thank you. Thank you guys for watching that. I appreciate it. So let's go back into this. So that's all I'm trying to say is, beards are very much a nature kind of connected thing. You kind of can't really imagine a colonizer or someone who is like traveling, in the wilderness without something like a beard. Eventually, when a person continues to stay more closely to nature, live in nature, live in, camps, and like if you go camping for a very extended period of time, eventually you'll just grow out your beard because you won't see the need of shaving, because shaving is almost like an industrial type of complex. You got to look clean. You can't look dirty. You can't look associated to what nature has been giving you, like the dirt on the ground or the bark on the trees or the dandruff that some or the pollination of bees, the just like all the things that are associated with like a dirty lifestyle, the outside world. Don't get your hands dirty. That type of environment is so important for us, because there's also probably, I think there's like studies that claim that kids who go outside and play in the dirt, are more inclined to develop sort of an immunity to their bodies. Like they end up fighting off bacteria and viruses a lot better and a lot faster than kids who enclose themselves away from nature, away from their natural habitat, which they've been pretty much around that for hundreds of thousands of years, if not however long it's been, for the human type of genome. Go back to the earliest form of man. Go back to the earliest form of humans, hominids. Go way back to like the earliest, link to what our ancestors, were back in half a million years ago or something. But again, it's really important. Our ancestors have been living in nature for all of time. So why would we be separating ourselves in this modern time away from nature? That's why people like John Muir is true legendary person not only with a legendary beard status, but a status of, conserving that type of, um, just being able to remember where we came from at first. And we come from nature. We are pretty much stardust. We're basically made of carbon, basically the same type of, you know materials that are from the earth and everything. So we're no different. We just need to coexist with each other, and that way our best selves will flourish and bloom. If we go away from nature, then we will start disconnecting ourselves from nature and God, and then that way we end up like becoming more, um, not disabled, but like more dysfunctional when it comes to being ourselves as humans. So that's why it's so super important, not only to connect ourselves with family and community, but also get out there and go bounce a ball, go like dig a hole, go rip some grass, go like run around barefoot a little bit, with reason. Don't like go into those like places where you're obviously going to be stepping on something like some broken glass. Clearly be in a good environment, in a good setting where you know that you're going to be safe if you're a little bit barefoot. But yeah, that's all I'm trying to say, is try to connect yourself a little bit more with nature, and you'll actually feel a lot better. Your depression will go away, your confidence will boost up, you'll feel a lot more better about other people around you, including yourself. It's just that unspoken feeling of completion, feeling of appreciation that we all have for one another and ourselves. So that's what happens when we get out there a little bit. We get some sun to our skin. We, start to breathe in the pollen. We start to get more acclimated to what we were usually supposed to be around this entire time. But you know how industrialism is. Industrialism is always that type of person, is always that type of thing that innovation, innovation, innovation. But unfortunately, too much innovation will disconnect us from our only source of comfort, and nature is a human's comfort, is the human comfort, is the natural human comfort. I would argue that, hey, if you're feeling depressed, go walk outside, and I'll guarantee you within 20 minutes of walking outside with a little bit of fresh air, with a little bit of watching the sky, watching a little bit of the flowers as you walk by, safely of course, you'll feel a lot better. Your anxiety and your depression will go away, because now you're starting to become more involved with what you're supposed to. So yeah, anywho, hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Stay tuned for the next Bearded Legend for next Saturday when I go live. And I'll be posting another video, a short video tomorrow, all day, every day. And with that being said, you guys have a great one. See you next time. And as usual, beard the course, guys.